Hey everyone, I hope you all are doing awesome. So welcome back to another exciting video. So imagine you have built an API and that is live, and hundred of clients or users are using your API every day, and suddenly you thought that you have to change something, like, or you have to rename some field, or you have to change in the response, and suddenly everything breaks. So that's where your API versioning comes in or even exists. Okay, so in this video we'll talk about what is API versioning, why it matters, and we'll see the live example hands-on, like what are the different ways of API versioning and all those. So without any further ado, let's start with the video. Let me quickly share my screen and see you there. Hey, hello, what's up? I hope my screen is visible and you can see the scalable. Okay, cool. So what is API versioning? Let me quickly use the laser pointer. Perfect. So what is API versioning? So it's a process of managing changes in your API without breaking existing clients. So as I mentioned you the example, like you have developed an API and it is live now, and there are hundred of clients or users which are using your API every day, and suddenly you thought that you have to change in the response, like any data in the response, or you have to rename any field, or you have to remove any field. So how you will do that? If you're doing that, so your suddenly everything breaks there. So that is not the correct way. So where your API versioning comes into the picture, it is the process of managing change in your API without breaking existing clients. Cool. So there are some versioning strategies, like there are some strategies how you can do the versioning. Okay, so like we have a URL path, we have query parameter, we have header versioning, we have content negotiation. Cool. So for the very first we have URL path. So here most of the time you have seen, like in the APIs you have API/v1. This is just one reference example. We'll see the live code as well, but this is just the overview. So as you can see here, we have the API v1 in the URL path. So this is like the most common and simple and explicit. Like this is most common. We already have seen this in many places. Cool. Next we have the query parameter, where your API users or the version 1. It's easy but less visible. If you have worked on Azure services or AWS services, or might be on the Stripe as well, so there you probably see like your query parameter, like for particular service, like the version, which is your current date, or you specify the date in the version. Drop a comment if you have seen that. Okay, then we have header versioning, which like we define inside the header, we specify your one key, we configure in the backend, and then we pass the dedicated value for, and we pass the dedicated value for that. And this is clean URLs, slightly complex. Yeah, this is because you have to configure few things and you have to parse in the header as well while making a call. Next we have content negotiation. This is related to like your media. Okay, and this is very restful, but this is advanced and this is complex. We don't use this. Most of the time we use your URL paths, query parameter, like not much query parameter, but like Azure services, and header versioning and the URL path. These two are the mains that we use inside everywhere. Like your GitHub and lead code, they all use your header versioning, URL path, and sometimes like your Azure services, they use query parameter. Cool. So best practices we'll see later. So it's the time to like create the project and see how these things works. Just give me a sec. I hope you can see my Visual Studio 2022 screen, and we'll create one ASP.NET Core Web API, and what name should we API versioning playground. Cool. Configure open API controllers. Perfect. Just allow us some time, it will. Okay, so it's here. Cool. So for the API versioning, you have to install two NuGet packages, and let me show you that. We have ASP.versioning. The very first you have to install your ASP versioning MVC, and the second one you have to install this API Explorer. Once MVC will be installed, then we'll install API Explorer. Cool. So the second is this one, ASP versioning dot MVC API Explorer. So hello. Okay, cool. So the first thing now, we will create one controller here. So let me first create one controller here, and we'll create API controller. Click on add empty controller, and we'll give this a name as products. Cool. So here we have API controller, API path. Cool. So here what we'll do, we'll create one HTTP GET. Will not define any v1 public iaction result. This is the products endpoint. Okay, so this is the one. So what we can do, let me quickly run this and validate whether our endpoint is working or not. Let me open the Postman as well. Will not use Swagger, or we can just test it out using the Swagger. Yeah, this is working, but we'll check few things. As you can see, as of now, in the response address we have nothing like whether it contains any versioning or not, nothing like that. Cool. And this is my Postman. It is working. Oh, let me bring the Postman here. So as you can see, I sent request, I got the response in the Postman. Perfect. This is working. Let me stop this now. What you can do for the very first, what you have to do, you have to define the API version, and here inside the route also you have to maintain few things. I don't want to hard code any like 1, 2, 3 version or whatever. So instead what we'll do, we'll define here our dynamic values. We have this API version, and this must be coming from your ASP versioning. Perfect. So every time it will be replaced with the version you have here, and we have to configure a few things in here. So we have to add our services like API versioning services to the container. Add API versioning services to the container. So we'll do builder dot services dot add versioning. Perfect. And here we have to pass few options, and what we can define, options dot assume default version when unspecified is equal to true. And we can also define here options dot default API version is equal to new API version, and we'll define as 1. Cool. And we want report versions as well, and reader we can use as so for the readers, where is our where is, as you can see here, we have these strategies like your URL path, query parameter, header versioning, and content negotiation. So here we can define our reader as well. So what you can do for that, you can say new API version reader dot do I have combine here? Am I missing anything here, or like, no, why do I need to make this function static? Okay, cool. So new wouldn't be there. So this is the the first we had when the new URL segmented API version provider. Okay, so these are the strategies we have, like the URL segment API version reader, then we have the query parameters, then we have the header API versions, and then we have the media type, that was content negotiation. Okay, so we'll not see these all. Very first what we'll do, we'll go with the URL segment API version reader. So I think we can simply remove these, we don't need these, and yeah, that's all. So let me tell you what we are doing. So default version we are defining for our API is 1. What we have defined in our controller, it's 1. Okay, or we can just simply, instead of string, we can define the numeric value 1 for this. Cool, let me save this file. We have 1 here. So here we define the default API version is 1, or assume default version when unspecified. If no one is specifying any version inside the route, then inside any strategy, then the default version would be your this endpoint would be called your this controller endpoint. Perfect. And now what we have to do here, we have to dot add MVC here. Now we have to add API Explorer, and here what we have to do, I think we have to maintain the indentation. Perfect. So this is our API Explorer, like we have to show the versions. This is regards to your Open API, so we have to show there, like this is the format how it will look like your version dedicated, and this is your substitute API version in URL, and we are marking this as a true. Setting this property true will also remove the API version parameter from the corresponding API. Basically what it will do, like here inside the controller we have defined the API version, so it will replace with the actual value we have passed. Cool. So I think we have pretty much done. So let me again run the application and see. Oh, where is my swagger? Okay, as you can see here, I have run this, and as you can see we are getting the API v1 because we have defined the v1 version here. And we can just take this and we can go inside our postman, and we can just simply use this, we will get the same. But if I change anything here like v2, because we haven't defined any corresponding endpoint for the versioning. Oh, let me show you one more thing, if I'm getting that as well. Yeah, so let me show you one more thing here in the Swagger. As you can see, earlier in the response headers we were not getting your API supported version. So as of now it only has one version, which is 1.0, and we also defined one version like the default. like if we are not defining v1, then also it should work. It's saying 404 not found. Why? Although we have configured the default API version. Okay, I think our path, yes. So what we have to do here, we have to define one route which does not contain any number, API version number, and yeah, I think now we'll be able to route your without v1 directly to that. Where is our postman? So I think now this should work. Yeah, as you can see, now we are not defining any API versioning inside your route, but still we are getting the response from the v1. This is the products endpoint, and what we can do for the this is the products endpoint from version 1. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll define one more version here. So for that, let me first create one v2. We can just take this and here we can paste this. What we can do here, we can change the namespace. Version will make it as 2. This is the second. This is the product endpoint from version 2. Perfect. Everything is same, nothing has changed. Now we have two versions, which means let me run this and validate whether this is working or not. Ho. So what we will do, we'll go, this is my postman. Let me validate this first. If we are not defining anything, we are getting the response from version 1. And if I wanna define here my v2, yeah, if you define v2, then we are getting the response from the v2 version 2. And if I define v1, then we'll get the response from the v1. And if I do not define anything, then I'll get the response from the v1. But what if you want the default response from the version 2? Then you have to change here inside your default configuration, and that's all. I can go back to my postman and we can just give me a second, I'm getting a call.
जा रही हूँ दिवाली मनाने। हैप्पी दिवाली, शुभ
जाओ
दिवाली,
जी,
जय
हैप्पी
दिवाली।
दिवाली, जय दिवाली।
जय दिवाली।
जय दिवाली जी।
जय दिवाली।
घर जाना जल्दी।
क्या गलती करी है हमने, ये रीलोड हुआ नहीं है मुझे लग रहा है। अभी चेक करें क्या, अभी भी वर्जन 1 से लेके आ रहा है। दिस इज द प्रोडक्ट्स, डिफॉल्ट API वर्जन वी हैव डिफाइंड एज वर्जन 2। एक बार चेक करूँ यहाँ, here we have defined API version v2, API version API controller, ठीक है, सब कुछ सही है। This should work, why this is not working? Yeah, वो रीलोड हुआ नहीं था। हॉट रीलोड सही से काम नहीं कर रहा है इसका. ओके, सो एज यू कैन सी now we have changed our default to the v2 and we are getting our response from the version 2. Perfect. So cool. Can I show you one more thing? Yeah, definitely. So as you can see here, now this is the default. If I'm executing, we are getting v2. We have seen this from the postman, but in the response header what we are getting, API supported versions 1.0, 2.0. Earlier there was only 1.0, now we have 2.0 as well. So this was for your where is program? Yeah, this was the strategy for your URL segment. But we have, suppose we wanna like utilize multiple, so what we can do, API version reader dot combine. Suppose we want to use your where is my URL one, new URL segment API provider. Perfect. Let me show you now the magic. Suppose now we are combining what we have missed. Perfect. So suppose now we want your URL segment API version reader and the query string as well and the header API version reader as well. So how it will work? Nothing, you just have to change inside the configuration, although you can just define this configuration in a different or a separate file, but just for the example I'm just showing you here. So now what we'll do, where is my postman? अरे मेरे को सेकंड नहीं चाहिए भाई. ओके, सो अभी v2 चल रहा है ना हमारा डिफ़ॉल्ट, ठीक है. तो सपोज़ अभी हमने यहाँ पे कुछ भी डिफ़ाइन नहीं किया. अब हम यहाँ पे क्या डिफ़ाइन करना चाहते हैं, मेरा API वर्जन, एंड दिस इज़ फ्रॉम योर API version for your query string. So key we have provided as your API version and value we wanna define as 1. Bad request. Are we missing something here? API version. Holy shit. नहीं, मैंने इसको सेव करके स्टार्ट तो किया है, तो क्वेरी स्ट्रिंग में मैंने API वर्जन ही तो दिया है. इसको हम यहाँ रखते हैं, इसको यहाँ रखते हैं, ठीक है. इसको यहाँ डालते हैं. अरे दीदी, कोड कहाँ है मेरा? ये है मेरा API वर्जन. दिक्कत क्या है इसमें? 400 बैड रिक्वेस्ट. वाई? क्यों मैं API वर्जन, मेरा क्वेरी स्ट्रिंग नहीं चल रहा है. API प्रोडक्ट्स के बाद क्वेरी स्ट्रिंग तो लेना चाहिए था. API प्रोडक्ट्स चल रहा है, ठीक है. सो व्हाट अबाउट हेडर्स? सो सपोज हेडर्स में मैं यहाँ पे एक X वर्जन डिफाइन करता हूँ 1. ये चल रहा है. अगर मैं यहाँ पे 2 डिफाइन करूँ तो ये चल रहा है. तो ये क्यों नहीं चल रहा है भाई? Why this is not working? स्पेलिंग तो सही लिखे है ना अपन ने भाई. अभी यही लिखा था, बिल्कुल नहीं चला था. अब चल रहा है. Holy shit! अब यही लिखा था, बिल्कुल नहीं चल रहा था भाई, नेक्स्ट लेवल चीज़ है ये. Okay, so sometimes it just didn't work like due to some cache or you know that. Okay, so now it's working. So as you can see, now we have used 3 ways like your URL को भी verify कर लें एक बार. हमारा query parameter चल रहा है, headers चल रहा है, और यहाँ पे हम अगर v1 को यूज़ कर लें, cool. अब हमारी तीनों चीज़ें चल रही हैं, URL segment API version reader, query string API version reader and your header API version reader. Perfect. Now everything is working perfectly fine. So this was for your versioning, or same way you can define multiple controllers and you can just define the versions, but there is one catch, like whenever you need a change, do you really need to define the versions, or is this better, or is there any better approach? So let me tell you. We can just close this and we can stop our application. Where is my code? Okay, so we have seen these strategies. We haven't covered the media one. If you want, you can try it out, and if you want me to validate that and show you, just drop a comment for the media one. We'll see that as well. Okay, so here are few best practices. So when should you version your API? Only when you are only when you make breaking changes, like renaming your field, which means if you rename, then the existing clients are just accessing to that field. So which means the clients or the users who are using that API or endpoint, they already have the field name like the old one, so it will break the flow. Changing routes, if you are changing any routes, or removing data because they are accessing that field and you have just removed in the newer version. Okay, so in that case you have to create the new version of your API, whether you are renaming, you are changing, or you are removing. So when should you not version your API? So it's like when you are adding any parameter, and that is optional. Adding new fields or parameters that are optional doesn't require a new version. Definitely, if no one is consuming, no worries. The fields they are accessing earlier, they must have those in the response. If they are, then there is no impact. Okay, also always document your version clearly and deprecate older ones gracefully. Exactly, like आपने सुना होगा कि जो भी हमारे LTS होते हैं, सपोज माइक्रोसॉफ्ट का था कि ये हमारा पर्टिकुलर 25 नवंबर या this on particular date, this will be deprecated. So please make sure to update or migrate your applications to specific versions. They provide proper announcement. They just announce, okay, and they document everything on their website, okay, and after that they deprecate the older ones gracefully. So make sure you are doing same way as well. Cool. So that was all about this video, where we have just seen a basic one, like what is API versioning and the versioning strategies, or when should you version or when should you not. So yeah, that's all for about this video. If you found this video helpful or useful, then don't forget to like, subscribe and share. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, keep learning, keep growing. Bye bye.